Hello everybody and welcome to another one of our training videos. As you will know by now, I think we've been looking at different ways that leadership can be improved, developed, and those skills and abilities that we need to become better leaders or even outstanding leaders. I've shared with you some of those leadership traits, leadership skills, and abilities to become not only a leader, but an effective leader. In this particular video, we're going to review something which I think is something we all go through in different ways at different stages in our life or career. It's fear. Fear. It's a very important aspect. On the one hand, it motivates and it demotivates. It demoralizes and encourages, depending on how it's used and viewed. So we're going to dive into this because it's a very important aspect of leadership. My name is Igwe. I have over 35 years experience of leading, developing and training teams across 5 different markets across Europe, Middle East and Africa. And the thing that I love is really all about leadership, how to lead people and how to teach people to lead their own teams. If you like what you hear, then please feel free to like, comment and share, and of course subscribe to the video channel so you don't miss out on the other videos coming through. Fear. Fear is an acronym for false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. And we'll go into that in a minute. You see, when you think about fear, there are different ways. On the one hand, of course, I'm talking about fear in terms of the way you may lead. So it could be your leadership style, how you lead your team, or it's fear in respect of yourself as a leader. We're going to touch on both, but I want to spend more time on fear through and in leadership. Now let's stop and think about it. If you are one of those who leads your team through fear, there are various things that you're doing. On the one hand, it could be anything like you don't give them a pay rise. You don't give them vacation when they want vacation. You make them work longer and extra hours. Maybe you intimidate them, maybe by voice, by presence. Maybe you micromanage them all the time. These and various other aspects are leadership by fear. And you may say, well, nothing wrong with that. That's what I do. That's what I'm expected to do. My suggestion would be think about it. Always imagine yourself in the other person's shoes. How would they feel? How would you feel being led in that way, in a manner which is full of fear all the time? If you don't come in by 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock or whatever, or you don't leave at 6 in the evening, it's going to be a terrible time. What kind of motivation is that for coming to work every day? See, what that creates is distrust, disinterestedness, lack of communication within the team, because everybody's concerned that if they do or say something which is wrong, there's going to be a negative impact on them. So if you take that form of fear and impose it on your team, you're actually doing a misjustice and injustice to yourself and to them as well. Because that's not the way the leadership that I'm talking about and most great leaders function with. That's not what it's about. Maybe there's a time and a place, and maybe there are circumstances, but it's not one to be used for a long period of time. So I want to focus on the other one, which is fear as a leader. Fear in yourself as a leader. And that's the key. That's the real issue. But before we jump into it, I just want to remind you of a few things. So on the one hand, it could be that if you fear, it could be part of your conditioning. Remember, as I said, I've worked across Europe, Middle East and Africa and engaged with Americans, Asians. Different cultures have different approaches. So there could be some conditioning that you need to consider for yourself, which is, it could be part of your culture whereby there has been a culture of fear in leadership that's been imposed on you, or you lead in that way. It could be part of your upbringing, childhood, maybe a dominant father or mother. It could be part of your education or lack of education, as the case may be. It could just be part of your personality, that you have that nature, timid, shy, scared. Or it could be just personal experiences that you have had throughout your life or your career. So you need to recognize those. We clearly don't have time to go into them to unravel them, but it could be conditioning. But it doesn't mean that conditioning can't change things. So let's start here. What are the elements that embrace your own fear? It could be that you have a fear of failure. You don't like failing. Maybe at school, when you failed, there were consequences. Maybe when you failed at school, there were consequences at home in the way in which your parents maybe treated you. Maybe you're fearful of making a mistake. That's holding you back. You don't want to be a mistake or make a mistake. You want to have perfection all the time, successes. This is a big one, imposter syndrome. It could be that you feel, okay, I'm a leader. I have this team I'm leading. I've been promoted or whatever it happens to be, but you don't feel that you really deserve it. You weren't born into it. You haven't been trained for it. You haven't developed and you're not ready. So it's not you. Could be failure of criticism. Maybe as a leader, people may criticize you within your team, or it could be your bosses or anybody else, and you're concerned about taking that. You could be concerned and having a fear about speaking out. If there's something to be said to the board or to your boss or shareholders or whatever, it may be that you feel, I don't really want to say it. And it could be simply because you don't want to be held accountable, which we talked about in a previous video, is the whole accountability piece. As a leader, you are and must be accountable for everything you do. So look at yourself and see if any of these resonate with you. Are you fearful of any or all, or some of these? Because that's the beginning of recognizing that you have to deal with your own fear. So it could equally be isolated position. Maybe you have a position that is a minority one. Maybe you've got a view of something which the rest of the board, the management, the team don't agree with, and which you then have to validate or prove or demonstrate that you are right or your positioning is right. Or it could simply be making a tough decision. You're not wired that way for making tough decisions. Could be anything from saying thank you to a member of your staff to taking a particular strategy that you're not sure about. Or it could simply be a new business you've acquired and you don't quite know how to put it together. So these are all the elements of fear that could be running around in your head. So then the question is, okay, how do I deal with it? Because you can't leave it to fester. You have to deal with fear full on. Here are a few ideas I want to give you. The first is, and this may sound simple, but again, these are things that need to be worked on, but you need to recognize it. Recognize that you have a fear, because sometimes, especially if you're one who rules by fear, you will say, I'm not fearful. I don't fear anybody. I'm totally okay. Well, recognize that you do have a fear factor, maybe based on those points I raised beforehand. Check the boxes and see how they fit in. Once you've recognized that, you need to face up to it. It's a bit like looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, yeah, I have an issue here. I need to deal with it. And how do I go about doing that? Well, you then have to look at building self-confidence, because that's part of the process. By building self-confidence, it's where you start to step by step, little by little, take any of those things that I mentioned before. You make a mistake. It's okay to make a mistake. Forgive yourself. It's fine. You didn't make a good decision, but you made a decision. Observe others. What I mean by that is observing those who are already leaders, those who perhaps you admire, you look up to. What do? They've all gone through failures. They've all gone through their own fears at different stages. What have other people done who are leaders and that have helped them to work through this fear? Then start to make those smart decisions. Like I said, step by step, the little ones, the small ones that you can do, and then get bigger and bigger and bigger. It's rather like flexing a muscle. You start to work out in the gym, or you do CrossFit, or you run, or you cycle, or whatever. You start to get stronger and stronger. Make decisions, make smart decisions, and I would say initially perhaps make small decisions to get you on the path. And then the other one, which is the flip side of recognizing and facing up to yourself, is choose to be different. Choose to make that choice, which means you are no longer going to be or have what you had before. You're going to say to yourself, it's okay to be fearful, but I'm going to change it. But I want to close with something which I think you should take a deeper look at, which is a poem written by a lady called Marianne Williamson. And she said, and listen to this, and I would suggest you get the full text. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. You see, it is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us. So we ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, to be gorgeous, to be talented, and even fabulous? But then actually, who are you not to be? Who are you not to be? The very best you can be by recognizing that you have a fear, overcoming that fear, and becoming the amazing person that you are intended to be and the amazing leader. So I encourage you to get the full poem of Marianne Williamson, because it is a brilliant one, and it really addresses that aspect of false evidence appearing real, fear. And take it away, eradicate it, and allow yourself the strength to become an even better leader, rather than being held down by something which is not always real. I appreciate you listening. Thank you. If this has resonated with you, please feel free to like, comment, and share, and of course subscribe to the channel to know more about our other videos as and when they become available. Thank you.